Social, legal, and ethical issues, factors that impact on systems. Now, there are a variety of foundations used within communities to understand what is deemed right and wrong, which will impact on the development and acceptance of new systems. Social, legal, and ethical perspectives guide this understanding, having both positive and negative implications based on the development of new technology and systems. So, what we're going to take a look at in this video is these three categories of social, legal, and ethical issues. And we're going to start off firstly with social issues, which are issues that impact on people and how they interact with one another. So, the first example is that of the changing nature of work. How people's work related tasks can change as a result of new systems and the impact of these new systems on workplace morale. Essentially, if technology is taking over people's jobs, it affects their feelings about themselves, but also how people interact within a workplace will change in firstly fear if they're going to have job loss or if they've lost a skill and how that affects their motivation because their skill was their passion. Now, obviously, this is a social issue because it relates to how people interact. But what I want to highlight here too is there's obviously an ethical implication related to this too. So there is overlap between the categories. Okay, the ethics being should we develop systems that are going to cost people's jobs? Okay, and what these systems can do too. So there's a variety of perspectives we can look at for each of these issues. But I'll try to highlight them in the actual categories I've got them in here today to illustrate the specifics between the different categories of issues. So the next issue is that of virtual communities. Online communities developed, okay, through social media and gaming platforms. So virtual communities are a great thing because they allow people to interact in digital environments. Okay, sometimes people find it hard to go outside, whether through disability or they might be very introverted as people in their personality. So virtual communities can be established to allow these people still to express themselves through online digital platforms. So there's a good side to it, but then also there's a bad side as well when we have things such as cyberbullying take place, where abuse takes place online. All right, so that's what we're trying to also highlight with these issues, that they have both positive and negative elements to them. And you need to remember that when talking about them when you're in situations such as assessments and exams. Then the final one for social issues is that of interpersonal relationships. And that stems on from kind of that virtual communities as well as from changing nature of work too, in that how technology allows for the development of relationships online. Okay, when we had the COVID lockdowns, we still were able to maintain relationships through technology. Okay, video conferencing became very popular and still allowed people to see each other and speak to each other. While we were using it a lot for work and for schooling, it also became a way for extended families to still get together online and see each other through the multiple pictures of the video conferencing software. So that was supported by software that supported interpersonal relationships. So that's social issues. The next category we'll get into is that of legal issues, which are issues that are specifically bound by law and thus are enforceable with consequences. So they've been developed by government and they have established laws, and we need to follow those laws, or else there could be a fine or imprisonment, okay, for breaching these. So the first one here is that of privacy. Privacy has a specific act in the Privacy Act 1988, which is developed to govern how enterprises manage personal data based on 13 specific privacy principles. Okay, they are responsible for the data they have about their employees and obtain from the community, and has to sit within those 13 principles in order for them to be compliant with the law. So privacy specifically is a law because it has a law based on it that is legislated and that companies need to abide by. The next area is that of copyright, which has the Copyright Act 1968, which is also a Commonwealth law. Okay, this relates to the ownership of information and products, ensuring that acknowledgement and rewards go to copyright holders. So if you hold the copyright for a product or an image, okay, when that is used, okay, it needs to be referenced to you. And if you've said you've got to pay for this, well, then companies need to pay to actually access your material. Now, the copyright will also specify how it is to be used. So if you purchased a movie, you can't start showing it at your own projector and letting everyone watch it and then make money off it. You have a specific copyright showing at the beginning of that movie saying it's for personal use. You are not a cinema. Okay, so it's not just about can you copy it, it's also about how you can actually use the specific software, application, movie, file, whatever. Will be outlined and based on the rules established by the copyright holder. The final area in legal issues is that of work health and safety, which has the Work Health and Safety Act 2011. The system we develop, okay, must comply with safety law. All right. And that means it has to actually factor in, is there parts of this system that could cause injury to people? And we don't always think that with computerized systems, but you do need to think about the context of, well, if my system uses very bright graphics or frantic animation, that's going to strain users' eyes. Okay. And then that becomes an issue. If people can't use it and affects their safety, companies won't be buying that software no matter how good the information is, because it's going to be harming their workers, and thus they can't use it at all. So we've got to factor that into our design of systems as well, that they comply with safety regulations. Some systems even say after certain periods of time, it's time to take a rest break, especially within workplaces, okay, to ensure that they not only factoring in safety into their design, but also supporting safety rules with their workers, letting them know, take a break, look away from the screen, have a rest, okay, and then come back to it. That might be after periods of 2 hours of work or whatever, okay, but they factor in safety into the design, as safety is a law as well. The final category is that of ethical issues, issues that are sensitive to the morals and values of a community. Now, this has an overlap with legal issues, okay, in that things that have ethical implications often become laws. All right. And so privacy has ethical implications because there is a bit of gray area in there in what organizations are doing. And we'll illustrate that with our examples. Okay. But it might not be mandated by law. And so we're just looking at the morals and values of communities to say whether things are right and wrong. So the first one is the appropriate use of ICT, how we use our technology, how we use our systems. So the development of ethical systems, as well as the handling, sharing, and tracking of system or user data. So if I'm an organization, I have this big system, am I viewing my users' patterns of usage, and what am I doing with that data? Now, this is a gray area because in some cases, yep, it's straight up wrong. They should not be looking into your files and seeing what you're doing. But sometimes you do click on the terms and conditions and say that, yes, you can share my data with your affiliates to an organization, and they do share that data. They use it for market research or to give you targeted advertising. So there is also pros and cons to that, because sometimes it benefits the user, but sometimes it can also be an annoyance for the user when you're getting lots of pop-ups popping up on your screen or random emails coming to you because your data is kind of being shared. So organizations need to be sensitive to the appropriate use of IT, as well as in the context of the systems they develop. Are they going to be used for ethical reasons, or could they be used for malicious items? Okay, and that's kind of coming up right now with the developments in AI, that people are looking up how to do unsavory things with computers. Ask the AI how to do it, and it tells them. But on the back end, okay, companies are trying to support that and make it so AI can't tell you how to do things which are wrong. The next category is the access to information. I've already highlighted that a bit, but who can see information stored on systems? Okay, and we often control that with permissions within enterprises, in that who has the right to view information, and usually it should be specific to people in a workplace that need that information to conduct their daily tasks. Then from that, can these people edit that information so they're given a higher level of access when they can actually make changes to the system? And then finally, who can share that information with other users? So access can be controlled within those three categories. There's also another level of people commenting on information, such as making suggestions about information without the ability to edit. But access to information does need to be controlled, specific usually to what are people's job roles in an organization and the relevance of them needing to access particular information. Not everyone in an organization should be able to see all the data within the entire enterprise. Okay, that does not support privacy, and it doesn't make sense, because if many people are accessing it, things can also get stuffed up or could lead to privacy breaches because there's too much access. So access must be controlled. The final category is that of data quality, which has its own subcategories related to issues within it too. The accuracy, which means the correctness, the integrity, which goes beyond correctness in that data is up to date, and obviously the final category of accessibility, that people are able to use the system and get the data they need out of the system. Okay, so those three categories in relation to how does the data become meaningful. So can users get the correct data they need, which is maintained and is actively checked to see that it is up to date from the system? Accessibility means in one area, the average user can access a system and they can get the data they need with ease, but also users who may have impairments as well being able to access the system. Having tools built in, such as text to speech, or be able to invert the colors on screen that support users in accessing information and getting what they need out of the system. This all relates to data quality. Data is of quality when it is meaningful to the users who are accessing it. It helps them with their tasks, their works, and enhances how they do their job. And that's what we want out of the systems we develop. And that's kind of what the ultimate goal is of enterprises when making a system. So I hope this video has given you understanding of the three different categories of social, legal, and ethical issues. Social issues being how people interact with each other as a result of developing new systems. Legal issues, which are bound by law, meaning that the systems we develop must comply with these laws, otherwise will cop consequences. And ethical issues, the morals and values of a community. Do the systems we create abide by them? And if they do, it's more than likely these communities will accept the actual systems we make, hopefully leading us to develop a popular and widely used system for our users.